Hi, everyone. Good day. My name is Kelly Olson Stewart, Associate Professor and Department Head of Elementary, Secondary, and Higher Ed Professions at the University of Arizona Global Campus. I'm super excited to be with you here today and with our amazing speaker, Diane Boggan, a coaching and development specialist with Faculty Affairs at UAGC. And she is presenting today Designing Neuroinclusive AI Systems of Care, helping faculty and staff see their impact on student experience, to explore how AI can support faculty and staff through neuro-inclusive, care-centered systems that reduce cognitive overload and clarify impact. I feel like I need that about today. Yes, so this is perfect. But a couple housekeeping before I turn it over. We're going to ask everybody to stay on mute and keep your videos off while Diana is presenting. After the presentation, you can come back onto camera. Feel free to unmute and ask questions. I will be gathering anything that is in the chat, so feel free to use that, and we will address those at the end. And I will turn it over to Diana.
Thank you, Kelly. I feel like I should have checked the word count on that title there. So I appreciate you. So hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Diane Boggan. I'm excited to celebrate my 10th work anniversary later this month. And I was just reflecting back on how much my role has evolved over the last decade. Right now, I mainly support faculty development and onboarding. So I wanted to kind of start us off today with something that everyone in education loves. And it's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately. And that's graduation. This is the moment that everyone works so hard for, right? Heartwarming stories, inspiring speeches, the cute little kids with their mom or dad's graduation cap on their head, tears, smiles, all of it. It's why we do what we do. I'm already getting the goosebumps just thinking about it. My son actually graduates this summer in 2 months with his bachelor's in information technology. And it's been a rough 6 years for him. And I'm very proud of him. And I cannot wait to go see him walk. But thinking about graduation, it made me think about how our entire work culture is built around this one moment in time for students, right? One of my amazing coworkers, Paul Schultz, he retires this month after like 16 or 17 years. But Paul knows how much work goes into graduation. And if you have been to graduation in at least the last 10 years, if you're faculty or staff, you probably know Paul. And you probably also know how much Paul loves graduation, right? I mean, we all do, don't we? We have a whole week that leads up into it, that's school spirit, activities. Um, we have meet and greets with students. We take pictures with the mascot, cap decorating, hooding ceremonies. There's nothing else like it. And actually, I live across the street from a high school. And every year I get to hear the kids graduating. And it's one of those schools where at least 80% of the kids are in at-risk populations, right? So every time a name is called, it's truly a celebration. But let me ask you a question. Have you left graduation weekend, come home Monday morning, and you just feel like your cup is just running over with inspiration, excitement, appreciation for all the work that everyone does at your institution? And then, if my slides will catch up, Monday morning, you're back at your desk. You're going through your calendar of meetings. You're looking at your inbox full of unread messages, your never-ending to-do list. Maybe you're like me and you aren't in a student-facing position. So maybe you're looking at a virtual stack of time cards that need to be approved, or captioning hours and hours of recorded sessions from a live conference, because accessibility is important, right? Or any other number of non-glamorous yet very essential roles necessary in an institution like this. So have you been in that position and just kind of felt all that excitement and inspiration? It melts away, right? And And sometimes you realize that when it comes to your day-to-day work, you feel completely disconnected as to how your work contributes to that student walking across the stage. That moment, that disconnect is what the session is about. You might attend your monthly, quarterly, whatever meetings where every department shares their work, their updates. You hear about retention, completion, student success. You leave thinking this matters. Then you open your inbox, you're processing forms, updating systems, answering questions, and somewhere in that shift, that connection disappears. Not because the work doesn't matter, but because the system doesn't make that connection visible. It's not a lack of effort, it's not a lack of commitment. It's a lack of visible alignment between what people are doing and why it matters. And when that connection isn't clear, it impacts more than performance. It impacts how people feel about their work. We often treat this as a communication problem, but I think it's actually a care problem. When people don't have clarity, they spend energy trying to interpret expectations. When they don't see connection, they question whether their work matters. And over time, that creates cognitive overload, frustration, and disconnection. So designing for clarity isn't just efficient, it's a way of caring for people in the system. Most systems you probably recognize are a bit like this. We give people checklists, policies, and documents. But what people actually need is context, interpretation, and meaning. Not just what to do, but why it matters and how it connects. At last year's TLC, Dr. Blake Naughton presented on the learning organization model. And that's what we use in our department to think about our work. It's a very simple but powerful way to frame your work. Instead of working towards meeting a random metric or some specific goal, you agree on what you want to learn about. You agree on the work that you want to do. You do that work with, say, an experiment to help you learn about whatever it is that you agreed to do. And then you reflect and share on what you learned. So this kind of shifts the focus from did you complete the task to what did we learn through the work? It sounds simple and easy, right? Shifting the narrative away from outcomes to the learning experience sounds great, right? But how do you even do that? And how do I do that in a way that connects my work to student success? Because you're in higher education, it's always going to be about student success. I have been told by a person or two that my brain might work a little bit differently. Maybe it's my ADHD. Maybe I'm just an out of the box thinker who likes to ask questions. Whatever it is, I needed help. So I sat down and I did some brainstorming with Copilot and ChatGPT. I made reflection worksheets, institutional context guides, conversation frameworks. I collected all this knowledge about our institution and our work. I even went and bugged Stephanie Kilby over in student affairs so I could try and understand what she kept talking about with those student success drivers and foundational themes and what was the difference and how does that fit in with student success goals. It was a lot. So all of the pieces were there, all the information, I had everything. And those tools, those worksheets, those guides, they helped. They gave me a starting place, but they still required time to sort through all that information, interpreting what that information meant in a meaningful way that would then facilitate a connection to student success in my day-to-day work. And I think that is where people can get stuck. And it's definitely where I got stuck. This is where I think AI can come in a interesting way, not as automation, not as evaluation, but as a translator, something that helps people interpret expectations, connect their work, and reduce cognitive load. The power isn't with the AI, it's how we design the experience around it. So I built a tool a translator that will, I'm going to push play on this, a translator that will allow anyone at UAGC to dig into how their everyday work connects to the bigger institutional picture. I took all my worksheets, context, and guides, and I created a custom AI agent in Copilot. This is just a screen recording that shows what using this tool might look like. There's no sound, it's just the conversation. The Exploring Alignment agent walks the user through the learning organization model in whatever stage of that model they are in. If they need to brainstorm what they want to learn, or think about an experiment, or take their experience and translate it into something they can share with others. You can even just talk to them more about a learning organization, what that meant, what the process was for thinking about your work in that context. And along the way, the AI agent will translate how their work aligns to the bigger institutional picture. This agent meets people where they are. It provides context so they can understand their role and their work. It can help plan by identifying 1 to 2 focused actions, and it allows for reflection to close that learning loop and share their story with others. This is not about adding more work. It's about making the system easier to navigate. It's about reestablishing the connection between your everyday work and student success. In this example, I asked the agent how my work in creating accessible content aligns to institutional context, right? It showed me how my work aligned to student success goals, the CARES pillars, student success drivers, anything that had a strong to medium direct or indirect connection. So when that connection is reestablished, here's what changes. We move from tasks to meaning, overload to focus, disconnection to impact. It's the same work, it's just a different experience. When people can see how their work connects, they can spend less time guessing, they feel more in control, and they understand their impact. I don't think that's just productivity, I think that's well-being. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, it creates the space necessary to invite that inspiration and excitement back into your day-to-day work. It allows you to see more clearly how your daily work translates into this picture here. So that when people see how their work matters, they don't just perform better, they feel better doing it. And that's what I think it means to design systems of care. If you are up for it, I'd like for us to take a moment and think, where in your work or your team's work is that connection not visible? Where are people doing important work but not seeing how it connects? Feel free to take a moment, think about it, type it in the chat, raise your hand if you want to come off microphone. I'd be more than happy to let someone else speak up.
Hey Diana, this is Amy Erickson.
Hi, Amy.
I think sometimes when we can get thrown into projects that we may have that may seem like they require very little brain power, but we have to get them done because we have a deadline. And I think it can be easy to lose that connection, like you talked about. But when we take a moment and think about for example, you and I are working on a project right now that requires a lot of kind of fiddly back and forth with cutting and pasting and things like that. But when we stop and think about how ultimately this is going to help faculty, this is going to provide important training for faculty so they have a better understanding of their role and a better understanding of how they can serve students. That connection, I think, is a lot stronger. And that can get lost when we're doing some things that kind of are a little bit rote and a little bit repetitive. But and it can get easy, like I said, to lose that kind of vision. But yeah, ultimately, everything we do is about supporting students and supporting faculty. So when we put it back in that lens, I think that's a really important reminder. And I just want to thank you for that, as I have to go back to these rubrics any minute now. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Amy. Amy brings up a good point. Right now we're doing this project. You may have heard about Waypoint and Speed Grader. There's been some updates about that. And Amy and I and Steph Adams on our team have been putting some of our faculty through practice courses and making some, I don't know how many papers that Amy has formatted into APA, some practice papers. I think it's probably at 100 at this point. But yes, it is definitely, you kind of can lose sight on how is this helping some of those bigger initiatives. And I think especially when you don't work directly with students, but it is nice when you work with faculty, because then you know that you are helping faculty be more prepared, and that can kind of help bring things back into focus. But it is very easy when you are uploading student work for fake students, a few hundred in a day, going, what am I doing? How does this connect? And I think that if you aren't careful about context, sometimes it's easier to go into burnout mode.
You know, Diana, I want to add piggyback on this here and it's not really like the alignment is unclear, but it's more like you identify a connection, I speak for myself. I identify a connection, and then I dig in and I start locking in on that connection. And what I don't realize is that sometimes there are other pieces along the way that are impacted by that connection. So it's not as a direct route between just me and one set of faculty, let's just say, that it impacts another set and another set, and there's another department that we need information from. And so sometimes there's other connections out there that aren't seen that can impact the way the alignment, the way it feels like you're aligned, because it's impacting so many different places that you got to be careful about identifying all of that up front, I think.
For sure, Andre. I think you're identifying that trickle effect where you have maybe a narrow view of what you're responsible for, and that project could be part of something bigger, and you're just a little piece of the puzzle. And if you see the whole piece, you can see how much effort and what it really does down in the big picture. And that can be kind of, you don't always have that insight, because you're focused on, I need to do this today, this week, this is due, this part of it, and you may only see just a tiny bit.
The other thing I'm thinking too, Diana, is just the idea that students don't understand any of the all of the behind the scenes mechanisms, right, that are happening. And so oftentimes as a faculty member, we hear student frustrations about the university. The reality is that we are all interrelated, and we are the university, yes. And so it's navigating how to bridge the connection so that students have clear paths to get answers that they need. And as a faculty member, even this is my 10th year, I'm still uncertain at times as to who to reach out to for fill in the blank. And so considering, when you think about alignment, some of it is communication, some of it is new roles, new responsibilities, new hats that we're wearing, different titles. But students just want the easiest path possible to get done, right? And that's what we're all striving to do.
That is a very good point. I think one thing I learned very early on is, though, the one thing that you can expect around here is change. You always expect change, and you have to be comfortable with that, or it's going to be an uncomfortable journey. But trying to remember where you fit in, kind of being grounded, right? It grounds you a little bit, and can kind of help you remember what your North Star is, so that you have some focus and you know what you're working towards.
Well, I am not seeing any other questions here in the chat. Diana, any closing thoughts as I paste in the links for outstanding presentation, awards, and then a link back to the main Culture of Care Summit?
Just that if anyone is interested in checking out that tool that I talked about and showed, here's a link to faculty help that you can explore that. And if you have any problems with it, you can send me a message and I can help you work through it.
A huge thank you to you, Diana, for sharing your time and insights. Thank you so much for all of the attendees joining us. We hope you found this conversation helpful and inspiring. We encourage you to visit the UAGC Culture of Care Summit website to view and attend other sessions. Don't forget to vote. Those links are in the chat and on the Summit website. And on behalf of the University of Arizona Global Campus, thank you for attending. Have a wonderful rest of your day. See you later, everybody.